Hello students, I'm Geethanjali. Today we'll be doing incomplete dominance. In the last video, we started with the loss of inheritance. So this is an exception to the first law of dominance. So in this case, what happens is that the the heterozygous condition shows an intermediate character instead of distinctly showing dominating character, right? For example, in the inheritance of the flower color seen in the snapdragon or antirrhinum, this particular case is seen. So here they have taken a homozygous dominant plant which possesses red flowers, and here we have homozygous recessive plant which possesses white flowers, and they have crossbred. So according to our knowledge of law of dominance, we would expect all of the F1 generation to be red in color, but that doesn't happen. So we get an intermediate character, that is, we get all pink colors. Okay, so as I told you, the heterozygous condition here is an intermediate character. Okay, so in this case, what happens is that we get the phenotype and the genotype as the same, because we know every genotype has a different phenotype. Before, few genotypes had the same phenotype, that's why the ratio was different. But in this case, every genotype has its own phenotype, that's why both are the same ratio, right? So why does this happen? We need to understand that. So first, what exactly is gene? So we know that allele is basically a form of gene. Gene is nothing but a DNA sequence, okay? A DNA sequence that codes for a protein, and this protein somehow contributes to the character. Suppose we have a protein which codes for melanin. So more the protein is produced, so more is the melanin, and more darker is our skin, and hence we get the dark color. Suppose there's no protein produced for us, there's no DNA sequence for melanin, and no melanin is produced, then the person will have fairer skin, right? So the person will be white. So this is how it works. Somehow the protein produced by the DNA sequence contributes to the character. Now, suppose there is some problem in the gene, okay? It can be a mutation or anything. So this problem in the gene will cause the gene to produce different DNA sequence, which will lead to the formation of different protein. Okay, let us say that this protein is an enzyme. Okay, it can be anything. So let us just take an example, enzyme. So if this protein is an enzyme that is being sequenced by the DNA, so there can be three cases. Okay, first, it could give a rise to a normal gene or a less efficient gene, or it could give rise to a non-functional gene. In the third case, no, not gene, sorry, enzyme. So in the third case, no enzyme at all. So what happens is that in normal gene, in normal enzyme, the character here usually will be the one representing the dominant allele. So this will usually be dominant, and these two will give rise to the recessive allele. Okay, so why is that? Let us say, suppose the color itself. Now we saw there was red and white. In the case of red color, we know that when pigment is being produced, right? So the pigment is actually being produced by some, let us say, some protein or somehow. through a DNA sequence through the gene. Okay, but if it's white, there is actually no pigment at all. So you see, when there is no pigment, that means there must be some problem with the DNA sequence, right? So the DNA sequence of the gene must have been mutated. Okay, in that case, it did not produce, it did not code for any pigment. So that is why the flower was white. Okay, without any color. So this is how basically it works. Most of the recessive characters arise due to recessive traits arise due to a non-functional enzyme or no enzyme at all. Okay, so this is actually the reason behind incomplete dominance. So now you see why we get intermediate color. Okay, so in this case, what happens? We have R, which gives for the red pigment, and we have small r, that is no pigment. Okay, in this case, the presence of two dominant alleles will only give rise to a red color. Okay, the dominant allele being by its own cannot completely produce a red color. It will produce a slight, you can say, a pink color. Okay, with the recessive allele. Okay, so that is why we call this incomplete dominance. So the R allele here, which is usually meant to be dominant, is not showing its dominance completely in front of the recessive one. It's partially showing its dominance, right? That is why we call this incomplete dominance. So this was about incomplete dominance.